know, she
I think it's just like the fact like after I was hunting on the spot, it's the nicest thing like I go down there and
So what's your involvement?
Well, what that is, you can have a beer customer, which means that is you just $12 and that's it. And you just get all your phone calls on there, and once you're having that, that's it.
What is your interest in
coming here? I think so.
My interest in coming here? Well, apart from the free. Hi Roger, nice to see you as always. I mean, what interests you about what David is about to present? He's after a serious argument. I am. I'm mostly interested in this wine. Wine. The consensus is wine. All right.
There will be a sign of that will be No, we will do it in the community center. It will be in the morning or it will be either in the afternoon or in the evening.
go away, Roger. I'm on holiday. I don't get filmed when I'm on holiday. First rate.
Do you go back to Canada and go to stay here?
No, I'm going back.
That's interesting. I haven't worn, I haven't put on any perfume for weeks, if not months.
Very nice. Oh, really?
You can hide it.
Right, you're going to give me a free consultancy.
What's the deal? You give me a free beer and I'll give you a free
beer.
consultancy.
Trouble is, most of my customers give me free consultancies, just very few of them got degrees. So.
Yeah, well, well, a degree doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, but on the other hand, you know, it does give you the ability in some sense to sort of take a step back and take advantage of your larger stuff. And I see no reason why this enterprise should not, as long as it's done judiciously.
You don't have to borrow with another individual. Then you get a serious chance. You don't have to turn the money around very quickly. Someone like myself is probably looking at 20% return on money. And we're not getting 20%.
Set the flow of goods through the stones right. You're actually ventilating it, you're drawing in air and putting it out. So that the final product is actually
just welcome people and then I'll pass it to you for a second. Okay, oops.
It's too like a pulpit.
Too like a pulpit. So we have, thank you very much for coming, and we have our dear friend Ken Hills to lead us in a moment of silence and whatever else is concocted, etc. I will call it.
Well, when God said I was to appear tonight, I was trembling, of course. And when I looked in my diary to see what I was doing tonight, I found that I was
doing something to do with the Phoenix. So of course I prepared myself and I got my bags ready and tried to go to the Phoenix. But just to let you know the degree of my nervousness, I thought I'm going to earn my brownie points tonight, for sure. Have you ever been to the Phoenix when she says, "Have you got your own bag?" That awful moment when you realise you didn't in your back pocket. Well, did you realise that the word ratio was invented particularly for your shopping? The O stands for organic, and the ratio is severely tested as you've probably noticed them sort of ticking your name on a little book or something as they look at your shopping to decide whether the ratio of organic to non-organic is correct, politically correct. You couldn't possibly go into the Phoenix without buying organic, could you?
No.
Well, there's always one. And I'm glad there's one Phoenix. And I'm glad that there are plans for making it more and more impactful in our area with the local community, with all our friends in the village, and with all the people, the providers and suppliers whom we will meet tonight around in this district and throughout Scotland. I'm very glad, and I hope to be able to support it, as I'm sure you will. And we will do this at the beginning in the traditional Findhorn way, if you'd be so kind as to join us in a moment of silence. And during the silence, you may focus your mind in your way to the success of this venture, to benefit everybody, to bring joy to lives, abundance to all, and community to everybody. I may introduce this chap whom you probably don't know, but have been longing to see and get his autograph, David, the Phoenix.
It doesn't matter how many times you stand down here, it's still a nerve-wracking experience. So welcome, and thank you all very much for coming. Thank you to the producers that came and all the Phoenix staff that have worked very hard to put this evening together. While I may often be the public face of the Phoenix in some ways, you can be assured that there's a great team behind me, and they better all be here, otherwise there'll be trouble tomorrow. So in terms of the format for this evening, I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes, I hope, and fortunately there's a clock up there that I'll try and keep my eye on. We have a short slideshow presentation. Then we'll go, there's about another 15 minutes talk. We'll be going a little bit, I think we've had our first 100 questionnaires back. And thank you for all those that have put up with my nagging and encouragement to fill in your questionnaires, and those that haven't. There's more questionnaires in the cafe, there's more questionnaires in the Phoenix. Because really this is very much our wish that the Phoenix develops according to the wishes of our customers. A, because we'd be a stupid business if we tried to do anything else, and B, because that's how we wish it to be. You know, that word community, that nebulous word, and we can go into the definitions of what is community and who is community. And as far as I'm concerned, for the Phoenix, it's anyone that comes through the door is part of our community, and that's through the back door in terms of our suppliers and growers from literally just down the road in the forest, from the wild mushrooms to all the way around the world. You know, as I walk the shelves of the Phoenix, it brings many memories for me. I'm almost just at my 25th anniversary in the whole food business. I had my first whole food shop almost 25 years ago to the day today. So it was one of, I think there were about 15 shops in the UK when I started. So it's something about being in there from the beginning. And that was in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, if any one of you have been there, and hence the Whole Foods is still going strong, I'm very pleased to say. In fact, the owner was up this summer, so it was a nice sort of to meet him and go back all those years. Before I go too much into talk, I need to make some disclaimers. The first disclaimer is that what you're going to see tonight is vision. We have no planning permission, we have very little money, we have a few people but not enough, etc. So, you know, there is not planning permission in for a new 50,000 square foot Phoenix dominating the park. That is not how it is. What the purpose of this evening is to find out what people are interested in, to give you a bit of input and a bit of the vision that we hold for the place, and then we'll take it on from there and present it to the various bodies that, you know, have a say over such things. The second disclaimer is that this is not a share offering. There's no, you're not going to be sort of get timeshares or something as you leave. We're not going to press gang you in any way. There's no forms to sign. You leave, you're all adults. If you're interested and you want to know more, there'll be plenty of things in the Phoenix over the coming weeks and months, you can be sure. We may badger you a little bit from time to time, particularly our community friends, but this is not a, I'm not pitching for your money this evening. What I'm pitching for is really your support and your engagement in the project. The third disclaimer was that yes, I'm just speaking. None of the rest of the Phoenix team would come up here, so it's me, but they are here with their support. So I guess, you know, as we've begun to start this project, you know, and you've begun to see the entranceway and all the rest. Oops. Oh, that's not a good start, is it? It's like, well, what's going on? What on earth are you guys up to? Why does the Phoenix have to change? We like it the way it is, etc., etc. The first thing is that to just give you a bit of history for those of you that don't know, the Phoenix began as a work department within the Findhorn Foundation. So it was just a regular place where people came and the guests worked there, and it was held as just as a department, and you worked there as if you might work in the kitchens or you might work in the gardens here. Then gradually, as charity laws became tighter and, you know, the Phoenix began to develop as a business, it came under the umbrella of what's called NFD, or New Findhorn Directions Limited, which was really set up as an umbrella organisation on the park here to support a number of fledgling businesses. There was the Findhorn Press and AES, which began as Weatherwise. There was the Wind Park and the Caravan Park. And the idea of NFD was that it would almost be like a nursery for businesses. Starting there, we'll give them some support to get up and running, perhaps some financial advice, perhaps some money, you never know. And then when they got to a certain size, then, you know, essentially you'd cut the apron strings and move on. And over the last couple of years, the people that know the foundation will know that the Findhorn Press was one of the first to sort of take that step. AES followed last year, this year, George? Last year. Last year, and now really it's the turn of the Phoenix. And, you know, in some senses, if you look at the sizes of the business, and the Phoenix is now around about £1 million business, and NFD together is probably 1.3, 1.4. 1.6. So it's a disproportionate amount, and in that sense, and the very nature of where we want to go, we've now become too big, and it's time for us to move on and then allow a space for sort of smaller businesses or other people with dreams and visions to come into that roster, perhaps or perhaps not. So that's the first one, plus the fact that we owe NFD about £210,000, which they would dearly love to have back so that they can develop their own business in the way that they wish to do. Although the Phoenix is actually a limited company and it's an independent company, the Finton Foundation through NFD is its majority shareholding. And essentially what we're looking at as the first stage of developing the business is to buy out those shares and to pay back the loan that they've so kindly lent us for all these years. Our second one is around really responding to market demand, that people, certainly from the questionnaires and certainly in talking, that a lot of the products that we're selling from 10 years ago when the Phoenix really began were fairly esoteric or were perhaps a little on the side, and now relatively mainstream. And so the amount of customers coming to the shop, the sort of things that they want, is growing, and the proportion and the ratio of customers is changing very much, whereas now probably 2/3 of our business comes from outside, what would be known as the Finton Foundation community. So in a sense, we are a community shop, but the community shop is, that definition of community is getting much bigger. Putting vision and service into reality, part of that costs money, and under the present situation, we're limited to the amount of money that we can borrow, lend, beg, steal, and the ways that we can raise that money and the ways that people can participate in the company. We're such a dominant majority shareholder, we can only let people in, if you like, in a certain way. And so part of wanting the Phoenix to go independent is it will give us much more opportunities to explore new ways of creating relationships between us as a business, our suppliers, and you, in the main part, our customers. The present physical situation is definitely unworkable. It's certainly unworkable for us. Anyone that's seen our offices or seen the conditions that we expect our people to work under, whether it's the bakers or the apothecary, it's pretty much untenable. As most of you put on your questionnaires, cramped tills and space. As you say, I should think 95% of questionnaire respondents have put more space as the sort of underlined, bracketed in red ink, purple ink. It's sort of, space is definitely what you would like, and it's what we would like, partly to show off what we do a little better. It's quite common for people to sort of have been going in the field for a few years and suddenly find a product that they'd never seen before, or a whole section even. A number of people go, I didn't know you did music, or the apothecary, or whatever it is. If you look at how we operate, we've got our storerooms are about 250 yards away from our shop. We have to unload in the it just doesn't work. Yes, that's plain and simple. We want to. That's a good enough reason. In fact, it could be the only reason, really. Yeah, we want to. But we're ready. I think that as a team and as a business, we're ready to evolve and develop. Maybe it's a worth issue. It might be that finally we've all moved through our unworthy phase, which I won't say it's a predominant sort of factor of the community, but it's certainly there. And now there's a bit of sort of, yes, we're ready to go out and do something a little bigger and take a few, I don't think it's risks, but to announce our presence a little more. We tend to hide a little bit here, and we tend to hide the things of value that we do, whether it's the gardeners or us as shopkeepers. And so it's a part of wanting to, I guess the kids would call it strut your stuff, but that's something where we are. It's around working, as Ken said, and it's very true for us. We definitely see ourselves as a business and us as individuals as being part of a peninsula community. You know, I think the old days of, you know, having the park here and Kinloss here and the village here, thankfully is slowly changing, and you're beginning to see the peninsula as, you know, an organic way of life for all that live here. And certainly if we extend the peninsula into Forres, I think that that's certainly true. Certainly Forres, Elgin, Nan, I still see them as part of it, but definitely on the peninsula. And the reality is that, you know, where do jobs come from? You know, very much a part of what we're looking at, certainly in terms of the future, is where are people going to work that live around here in the future? You know, as we're seeing, tourism has been badly affected this year. We've all had a taste. Anyone that works in any sort of tourist-related business will see that, you know, Findhorn Village has often depended, as does the foundation, on guests and visitors, whether it's the airline links or the rail service or the dollar or the Deutschmark or whatever it is. There's fewer and fewer visitors at this time. And so part of what we, like any other business, has to begin to do is to say, we really have to see that very much as an add-on, as an extra, and what we have to build between ourselves is how can we employ the most people, how can we offer the best training, how can we create something that's more permanent than the whims of, you know, of a tourist board or whatever it might be. Education, I think, you know, if I go back to my early years, sort of we were very much concerned with Whole Foods then, and it was the beginning of a counterculture, if you like, and it was very much bound up in that. And, you know, I know that as a Whole Food shop, we sold incense and we sold candles, and we sold brown rice in old sacks, and it was a very definite group of people that used to come in. That's beginning to change, you know, and we saw that it went from Whole Foods, then the whole organic thing came in, then the sort of environmental concerns came in, then fair trade, social action began to come in, sustainability began to be an issue. And it's like we're still in this place, and still within us, I think we have a knowledge that's still ahead of the market, and it's like what we're doing today, the market is following. If you had said, you know, we're going back, even day-to-day foods that probably all of you have eaten this week, things like pasta, things like yogurt, they were unheard of 25 years ago. You would not have found them in anything other than obscure Italian delis or little Whole Food shops. So part of what we continue to seek to do is to be available and to have the resources, you know, and certainly if I look at myself as an individual, I have a tremendous amount of resources from my time. It's a question of how is that passed on? What do we do? You know, and technology is beginning to come into this, and so those of you that went into the upper foyer would have seen the sort of Phoenix website is now out there and beginning to move along, and part of the intention of that is that it will be an educational tool. We're also seeing the work that particularly Craig and May are doing around this whole ecoversity thing, where part of, if you like, another stream of education within what is called the Findhorn Foundation, that rather than just being focused around personal growth or our own inner spirituality, begins to be, well, how can we put this into practice? You know, what are the right livelihoods that we can do? So I think there is very much a vision beginning to bubble up that says part of what we can offer in this place is beginning to offer trainings, you know, that people can come here, they can learn farming, they can learn baking, they can learn, you know, if you wanted to set up an organic food shop tomorrow, there is nowhere in Europe that you could go and learn how to do it. And these are the businesses of the future in many ways. And so part of what we'd like to look at as our developing role is how can we be a part of that, and how can we share what it is that we do, so that as the, you know, if we look at the way that the buildings here, you know, are famous throughout the world, whether it's the Whiskey Barrel House or the Breathing Wall, that there's something around food that is also, you know, we started with these giant cabbages, and anyone that works in the Phoenix will know that is still certainly 50% of sort of new people coming through. There's still this thing about giant cabbages and that early tradition. I think there is something about pulling that through, only now they're organic. In terms of inspiration, I think that is another role. It's almost like if you read the newspapers, or if you're dealing with the world in any sense, it's a pretty frightening place. If I was a Russian this week, I would have seen, I had this country's economy, and what I'm worth today is worth 20% than what I was worth yesterday, and the next day it's another 20%. So in 2 days, 40% of my wealth, 40% of my value is just gone. If we just think about that, or Malaysia is another one, is nearer 50%, or Indonesia. People, even countries like Japan, which were once seen as sort of the pinnacle of economic success, are now floundering. And it seems that there's a sign somewhere that says it's time to return, not back to local in terms of an isolationist policy, but back to local in the terms of we need to look after each other. And that's, I think that move towards community is part of creating it. I think it is an emerging world trend that's got to come, and if we can do it without the petty nationalism, and we can do it as that this in fact is how people like to be. People like the fact that this is something that they belong to, and I think that the Phoenix is part of what it's doing is almost going back to the village store, where there was that sense of somebody knew you knew them, that you would meet your friends in the store, you would see people on the way to the store that you knew, and some of them you might not want to see, but that's part of living in community. But it's almost around a sense of identity that we're going back, and I think that, certainly with the decline of, if you like, organized religion, people are having to look for other ways of cross-belonging, and I think that certainly things like organic foods, things like sustainable living, are beginning to, not to be a new religion, but they're beginning to be an identification and a way of people feeling a sense of, yes, this is something that we're doing together. Findhorn Foundation tourists, we're being affected as much as anybody else by tourism and the lack of it. As you'll see in the figures as we go forward, the parts of the Phoenix that are dependent on the Findhorn Foundation's guests and visitors, and the parts of the business that are dependent on tourism are suffering. Books and music and sort of exotic crafts. We're barely doing the same now as we were doing 3 or 4 years ago in comparison to the food, which is primarily geared towards the local population, which is, on a, whatever the word is, soaring. Yeah, we'll leave it as soaring. What we're going to offer you tonight is 3 basic proposals. It's like proposal A, proposal B, proposals. It feels like 3 bears or something. And we have 3 choices, and you have 3 choices as well. One is essentially for the Phoenix to say pretty much as it is. We just raise the money, we pay off NFD, and we carry on as before. That's roughly it. My own feeling is this is not a tenable sort of way forward. It's there, it's the most realistic one in terms of the little me that gets frightened about borrowing money or taking risks or doing whatever that is. This is the safe one. Essentially we just pay off the money and we try and stay the same size and the same people and the same products and the same cramped tills and the same everything. We just go on before and hope that it works out all right. Proposal B is a sort of middle way. Proposal B includes us buying out of NFD, but builds a few little things on the side. one of the things that I want to stress is that anything that we're looking at, we're trying to look at it so that it supports the businesses that are already there. So, you know, you'll see that one of the first things is around a restaurant. Why do we want to open a restaurant, you might say? The graveyard of many entrepreneurs. Partly because if anyone walking around this evening and looking over that bay would know that that's one of the most beautiful sights in the world, and that to have a restaurant that included that view as part of its agenda would be most wonderful, certainly for me. What a restaurant does is it presents food in nice surroundings. It gives people an opportunity to taste things that they might not otherwise taste before. It gives people an opportunity, certainly on the park, particularly if we put the restaurant in the village, the chance to escape. You know, it's a big factor here. You know, every day you see the cars leaving. You know, it's like, I've had enough. You know, I've been here for 6 days. I've got to get out. You can, yes, that's quite a one here. But what a restaurant also does is it uses vast quantities of food. And so if we had a restaurant that was serving the mushrooms that was picked from our friends in the local forests, and it was serving cheese that was made at Wester Lawrenson, and it was serving bread that was made by a bakery, and it was serving wine made by our friends at Vintage Roots, we've begun not just to create a restaurant, but it's also something, and it's also a hub of all sorts of flourishing local businesses that could all meet together on the back side, if you like, and then in the front side is creating an environment where everyone that lives on the peninsula and everyone that wants to come to this place has a place to interact. You know, one of the problems with the park particularly is there's nowhere really that people can go in the evenings and have that sort of mix. You know, it tends to become rather like a ghetto. And part of what we would like to do is to open that out, both for the people that live here and for the people in the local area. It's also around, if we do a restaurant, it's a fairly sensitive thing. I mean, I don't know how many, we're obviously aware of issues around transport and cars and all the rest, but it's like, if anyone was to go into the village with a business, then the restaurant is probably one of the things that would most add to the facilities that are available in the village. It would support the local pubs, it would support the infrastructure of the village, and it's not threatening. You know, I think that what it would do is to add to what is already on offer, rather than challenge anything that's already there. I also think that it's a good business. Anyone that eats out regularly in this area will know that what's good about the north of Scotland is that quality is still valued, and the restaurants that are really trying to present quality, whether it's the old monastery or Both House or what have you, are the ones that are doing well, and I think that we would want to go in as part of that tradition. We would wish to buy the existing building. I mean, part of the problem is that at the moment we're just a tenant, and as everyone that rents property knows, you're reluctant to do anything because that old landlord, you've got to keep handing over the dosh, and anything that you do, you've lost. So part of what we would wish to do is to buy the building, knock out a few walls. John Talbot's not here. Good. He's our resident engineer, and he goes mad every time we threaten to take a wall out. But there are a few more walls we think we could move. And we would like to build a brand new food market on the park. Why do we want to open a brand new food market on the park? What do we like? I mean, the problem for most people at the moment is that food too often now is something around fear, it's around pain, it's around, it's lost to some extent in our day-to-day lives, something of the joy that food naturally has. You know, food is this wonderful creation of whatever we conceive God to be. He's produced this sort of smorgasbord of things for us to eat. Food that nourishes us, food that we enjoy. And now, you know, what are the papers full of? They're full of mad cows, they're full of genetic engineering, they're full of additives, preservatives, cancers, colorings. Food is gone. You know, whether you're eating in a restaurant or buying your food in the supermarket, it becomes increasingly a fearful thing. We're almost looking to avoid the no's instead of celebrating the yeses. And yet, you know, if you talk to people about, well, what did you enjoy on your holiday or what have you? Oh, we went to this lovely, we found this beautiful little market, you know, and we went around and picked this and picked that, and it was truly glorious. So we had this wonderful meal in this little taverna by you can tell I've been watching Shirley Valentine. But there is something about food that brings people together, you know, that thing of friends round the table or breaking bread, whatever tradition we want to look at. There's something very special about food, and part of what we want to do is to present food in a way that is saying a big yes to what food is, to what it offers, to what you can enjoy. But you say, the sort of food you sell is too expensive. And it's true that quality food has a cost. But it's also true that food is around volume. That the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. This is true whether you're the Phoenix or whether you're Tesco's. The reality is still the same. That a lot of cost involved with food is in transport. Now, when we want to move, and our friends from High and Whole Food will know this only too well, that a lot of the cost of organic food at the moment is the cost of shipping. It's the cost of moving it from point A to point B. You know, and the Phoenix is full of organic food that's travelled vast distances. Now, that's nothing against the producers of those, but clearly the more that we can develop the local area to produce local food, the more that we can process that food ourselves rather than it being processed in Italy or Argentina or Australia or wherever else it gets processed, then the more control we have over the cost. So when you see things like fresh food production or in-store bakery, we know that if we can begin to develop the raw materials here, which is essentially the raw ingredients, then we can begin to create a food store offering seriously good food with prices that will be significantly less than what we're offering them at this time. So that's proposal B. We'll finish with proposal C, and then we'll have some slides because my voice is probably beginning to drive you mad. Some of the other ones, and this was the page on the questionnaire that got lots of, you know, question marks or things like landscaping. You know, the last thing that we want to do is to dump a barn, you know, in the middle of the park. You know, I think that, as you know, hopefully you'll see a little bit in the slides, what we want to do is to present the Phoenix in a surrounding that matches the quality of the products inside the shop. So anyone that's been around the recycling bins today will know it's a pigsty. You know, it's a seriously bad situation, and that is true often of the whole beginning of the entrance to the park. We've got some beautiful buildings on the park, and we've also got a lot of areas that need more attention. And so part of us as a business would want to do is that whatever we build, wherever we build it, we want to put it into a beautiful surroundings. There's an all-day cafe. By all day we mean all evening as well, just for those that were confused and said, couldn't it open in the evening? Sorry, it's a technical term. All-day cafe means we open for breakfast and we open for dinner and late night things. We'll go into a little bit about, you know, the Helios and other things through there. A rooftop garden, that raised a few eyebrows. We're looking at, if things go ahead and if we were to build a food shop down one side of the Phoenix and we were to put something else down the other side, then we'd have a roof across the present Phoenix building. And on top of that roof we'd put a hanging flower garden, and we'd put a little tea room, which we thought would be rather nice, and you'd be able to look out over the bay and sup your cappuccinos or what have you. Music shop, hey. Music shop's a music shop. We sell lots of drums, we sell lots of sort of third world things, that sort of thing we're talking about. Farm, there's lots of farms. We don't want to open another farm, we just want to support the farmers that are already there. and most of them need more money, don't you? Where are you? Yes, yes, went the cry. Eco Visitor Centre. For me, the present visitor centre doesn't work. It's too far away. It's in the bowels of something. It's not necessarily offering the quality, not so much the quality, the depth of information that's now available, particularly as far as we're concerned as the Phoenix. In terms of information about food, information about organic farming, information about fair trade and so on. So we're very much looking at how can we present all the tremendous things that are done in this community to the thousands of people that go through the Phoenix every day. In terms of the community office, people say, yeah, well, offices should be run by communities, and that's true, but who's going to build it? Who's going to pay for it? At the moment, we don't have a good track record in building community spaces over the last few years. And so part of what we're looking at in a community office is, around having, whether it's, a desk for Genesis, or whether it's somewhere where you can send a fax or get some typing done, or whatever it is, that there's a resource for the community and for the people that come through. Health and fitness is a bit of a wild one. Yes. But when we're talking about health and fitness, it's more like a holistic health. I'd love to see a dojo here that people could come, and there was a nice space that people could do Tai Chi, or they could have a massage or whatever, in a building that was built and designed for that, and that was as open to I'll call you the public, as it is to the people on the park. At the moment, too many of our facilities and too many things that we offer are tucked away, and they're just not accessible to the people that we think they should be accessible to. Ecoversity, we've already mentioned. Natural lifestyle shop. Here we're talking about natural organic paints, we're talking about futons, we're talking about natural fabrics, varnishes for your floor, beeswax, whatever it is, that as consciousness is moving and people have taken the first step and said, well, I'm a little more concerned about the food that I eat, the next stages go on. Well, then you start looking around your house and you begin to see the horror stories on the colorings, the dyes, the chemicals in your house. And so part of what we would see as the future is to begin to offer a range of living products. Anyone that lives in Germany, or visit, I go to an organic trade show in Germany every year. There are probably, if you imagine a hall about 50 times the size of this, just full of natural living products, whether it's shoes or whether it's clothes, a real, absolutely fantastic quality, and something that really reinforces that natural lifestyle, if you like, that many people are choosing to begin to adopt. And working capital. What's working capital? Money. That's the money we need as a business to protect us on those rainy days, to take the staff for a cup of tea one afternoon. Working capital is working capital. So that's another million. We've got endless facts and figures here about margins and sales per square feet and all that stuff. They're there. We can go into it a little bit if you demand it. But what I thought we'd do to sort of move on is we'll give you a bit of an idea on the first bunch of questionnaires so far, to give you an idea of where the community is voting. So, yes, no, info. Clearly, if you look down the yes column on the big projects, the yeses are very clearly around the bakery, surprisingly enough, or not surprisingly, I hope, for quality of our bread. Yes?
If you moved it back, would it get bigger?
Oh, I see. I don't know. Would it? Yes. How's that? Focus it, goodness. How's that? Is that better for everyone? Oh no. What? Ah, there we are. Stephen's going to work on the lights a bit. We'll publish these in the Phoenix in the next few days, so you don't have to memorize them. We'll just quickly... who spelt ownership like that? Oh dear. It's probably me. Anyway, there's your first one. So, more info is obviously the most popular, usually, and that's what we'll gradually begin to do. So, our idea really is, as far as the questionnaires is concerned, we'll take a pulse check on them, and then we think things that have got some sort of resonance of support, then we'll begin to publish more details in terms of costs and projections and what we need to do. But that's the first thing. What was great was that you don't want more opening times, which was a big relief to the Phoenix staff, I must say, so we can continue to sleep in the mornings. Nor, the biggest vote of all was against member-only shopping, which is very encouraging. We put it in as a sort of trick question, and we were glad that people picked up on it. You'll see that throughout the questionnaire there's a real wish for us to do more things in bulk and more things to refill. Clearly, you know, space is a big limitation, as are the local environmental health department on a number of things that we would wish to be doing right now. Bulk food needs a lot of space. That's the reality. So when people say, why do you want a bigger shop? It's so we can do things like that. If we look at this, we're going to lose this now, aren't we? Oh no. Well, no, it's whichever way round you go, it's going to be, let's try that. Okay, I think we can live with that. So the ones over, what this represents in this column is the total votes cast for anything, with 500 being the optimum. So anything that sort of got over 400 is sort of 80%, if you like. So this was how people thought we were doing right now, which essentially means that, you know, most people thought the food range was fine. There was one person that ticked all the ones, which meant very poor. We can only hope they either had a sort of brainstorm, or it was a Tesco's manager coming in to try and fool us. Yeah. It's pretty much what we would expect, that people like the range. They appreciate this, in general, the sort of well-meaning, if somewhat amateurish service we sometimes dish out. They hate the checkout, they hate the weighing scales, and, you know, the rest, they understand it's a crowded, cramped shop, and, you know, either live with it or they don't. What we've tried to give, as far as the entranceway, in case of those of you are wondering, what on earth are they doing? You know, why don't they spend their money on the rest of the shop? It's just to give you a taste of this is the sort of materials, this is the sort of look that we would like to put into the shop. We would like to be using local materials, we'd like to be using local craftspeople, we'd like the walls will be painted with organic paint, you know, the slates will come from somewhere local, the wood will come from somewhere local. So essentially we're looking at a store that is primarily stone and wood and glass. That's where we want to go, and space. So anyone leaving boxes in the entranceway, you know, is fired almost immediately, just to give you an idea. Well, at least you have space as you step in. Sorry? Yes, no, we're going to move that up. Okay, that's 1, 2. So this is So I thought I'd explain it. Obviously I did it very poorly. So this is the total vote in this one, and this is very good, good, okay, poor, very poor against each of the things. So the more we've got sort of blocks down there, the better we're doing, and the blocks down here. One thing that was very puzzling to us was crafts. You know, I think if you look at cards and incense and candles and things, it's as good as you'll find anywhere. But there was clearly a very recognized need for us to do more what one might traditionally call crafts, you know, particularly local crafts. I think that was the other really significant part, was a real heartfelt thing with a lot of comments and a lot of expression, both to us personally and via the questionnaire, that you really wanted to see the shop much more reflect the crafts of the local area, and certainly we've taken that on board. Are there any other questions around the bottom bits, top bits? I'll move the bottom bit up there. Then we had some facilities. So again, it's the same thing. Can you read this? God, I should have a technical assistant. Yes. How's that? Ah, yeah, we can do it. Yes. So again, we're dealing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, with 5 being yes please, and 1 being over my dead body, or words to that effect. Ethical banking, like here, was the clearest. It went off the, you know, we drew it like this and then it went off the graph. So that's 60 there. So it actually was that something like 4/5 of the people that responded would like to see some sort of ethical banking facility here in some form. I have no idea what form that might be. We are talking to some ethical banks about having some sort of virtual reality bank somewhere in some new expanded Phoenix. But I think it's, again, people are beginning to realize that, you know, what are banks doing with my money? You know, where are they investing it? What are they doing with it? And when we watch the world currency situation, you know, for most people, they know the banks, you know, are heavily involved in this. And enough's enough. You know, I think that is very much, if we've seen the success, particularly of the co-op bank, you know, that has gone from sort of a joke on the high street to pretty much leading the field, and are really getting an incredible response from their customers because they're sounding a note saying, this is what we will do with your money, and people are responding to that. I don't think we'll see a co-op bank in the Phoenix, but certainly someone like Triodos is a good possibility. Food information came quite highly, which I think just reflects the general lack of information, of not knowing what on earth is going on. Every week there's a new food scare. We really don't know what, you know, and either you give up and you just sort of cover your head and just sort of carry on eating, or you do something about it. And yes, well, it'd be difficult, I know, shoving it through your jumper. Other things, you know, when we're talking about a minibus service, we're not talking about making the local taxi drivers out of work or putting the bus company things. It's just, well, how do we deal with things like transport? You know, and for us as a responsible business, we have to take into account that the last thing we want is for that sort of Forest Findhorn Road to be so clogged with traffic, people can't get through to the shop. So, you know, by its very nature, we've got to be looking at things like home delivery, you know, and certainly, as anyone's read the paper recently, Sainsbury's is experimenting with bicycle deliveries in 3 of its major London stores with tremendous success. There's no reason why we couldn't have a bicycle delivery service into the village, for instance, or even up to Pine Ridge, if that, no. Yes. There's an in-joke here for those of you that don't live on the park around car use on the park, which we won't go into. The thing around the public garden is that also raised a lot of questions. What's true, one of the things that's really we're really pleased about is the age of our customers. Now, we're all getting older, that's true. But what we also have is we have a very large percentage, particularly of our sort of wider community customers, who are a bit older. And one of the things that, you know, certainly for us, we'd feel they'd really like, they drive all the way down here, you know, and what they really want is a cup of tea and somewhere to sit. And so the idea, you know, at the moment, the park is quite inhospitable to the elderly visitors. You know, there's nowhere obvious. If they go onto the green, there's sort of volleyball, the kids are playing football. They feel intimidated about, you know, wandering into Pine Ridge and trying to find the nature sanctuary. So part of what we think, well, if that road disappeared between the Green and the Phoenix, then, you know, is there a way that that area can be developed, that there's some sort of public quiet garden with a little pond and some nice sculpture and things that just offers something, just gives people a place to sit and think and contemplate the universe or whatever they wish to do. That was our feeling around it. It also brings more beauty into the park, you know, particularly we're all struggling with the landscaping of the caravan park. It's a very dominant feature of the park itself, and some way of how can we put some more into the middle that welcomes people to come and stay here. This one was around, oops, oh goodness. So we offered you a choice of some additions. Again, 5 is yes please and 1 is no thanks. Now the thing that's absolutely astounding here is the chocolate counter. Nobody wants a chocolate counter. We sell about 1,000 Ritter bars a week. We were the largest retailer of organic chocolate in the UK. Who doesn't want chocolate? This is very, very strange. It's like when people do these questionnaires, I think they live with, if I was really good and if I really, I'll tick the fresh juice, yes, because that's what I should have. And, you know, don't put any more chocolate in front of me. I mean, the only reason we put a chocolate counter there is because in the summer we can't sell chocolate. The shop's too warm. You can't refrigerate chocolate because it goes all white and cloudy. So you have to have a little ambient air. It's the same as good cheese. You know, it needs a temperature controlled little area so we can sell it properly. So, you know, there's these guys in Holland making this beautiful handmade organic chocolate, reaches the Phoenix, the sun comes through the window and there's these sort of melted squodges on a thing. So that's why we wanted to have a chocolate counter and hope, you know, it's an obvious business for somebody here. You know, people eat chocolate, so why don't we make it here and there's another couple of jobs. Yeah, bulk refill, bulk food, in-store bakery, cheese shop, again the same thing. You know, we get these beautiful artisan cheeses, whether it's from Pam and Nick or from Normandy, you know, and then we wrap them in plastic and we shove them in this sort of fridge. That's not the way to treat cheese. So we would just like to do it properly. If we're going to charge you, you know, £9 for organic parmesan, we want you to be tasting it as it should be tasted and not as it unfortunately often is. We put in sushi bar as a joke, but that got a respectable 10%. And someone the next day brought me in a wonderful little plate of sushi. Elka, are you? Yes, which was most sort of helping to land the vision. Yes, it was excellent. Sushi's great food, but we'll hold it just for now. Any questions on this one? Can all read it? I've had that one. We thought we might just give you a... No, quality of service, yeah, there's just a snapshot. It is, yeah, don't ask me to again, mainly around, as you can see, space. We've just got pages and pages of space. till queues. I think just while we're looking at this, the subject of till queues. I don't think our queues are that bad, candidly. On an average day in the summer, we do round about £10 a minute, which means that poor cashier is there ringing through 10 quid a minute. So think about that. That's every single minute from the moment we open to the time we close. That's what happens, which is pretty much the same. The Phoenix Till does the same. If you look at supermarkets, you can always tell how well a supermarket's doing by its checkouts. So they do an average of £1 million a till. That's a normal supermarket. So if you see 8 tills, you go, they're doing pretty good here. 8 million, not bad. Obviously 39 or something. So if you go into Tesco's, I mean, you have to wait a little bit. I think part of our problem is people expect us to be sort of like a corner store with one person there, and yet there isn't. You know, the reality is we're doing through our till as good as any supermarket in the country, but we've only got one till, and everyone's crammed into that. You know, if you were in a nice spacious checkout line, it probably wouldn't seem so much. But I think I absolutely agree on space, and I wish we had a third express till. But I think that sometimes our expectation of, you know, what you collectively expect us to do and what we're actually struggling with, we just put up a plea and say, don't take it out on the poor cashiers. They're working very, very hard. You know, you see them at the end of the day. So they're all out. Yes. Lots of this chaotic but charming came through on the ones. Yes. So what we'll finish in a few minutes. We'll just talk about, well, you've seen all the gump. How do we propose to go about this? In one sense, the truth is we're not really sure. Life is very difficult for businesses like ours in the UK. If you have more than 50 shareholders, then you have to go in and be a public limited company or something, and it costs about 100,000 a year in accountancy fees, and it's a very complicated thing. We can look at co-ops, but then the question becomes of what sort of co-op are we? You know, are we a consumer co-op? Are we a staff co-op? Are we a Findhorn Peninsula co-op? And co-ops are also limited in some ways in an environment like ours where you've constantly got changing people. So part of what we're looking at doing is what would be the structure that would hold some new ownership of the Phoenix. But what we are clear on is that we would like all of our customers to benefit in some way from the shop itself, if that works in any way, and we will do our best, as you'll see as we go through it, to make sure that anyone that wants to participate in the future of the Phoenix, whether you've got a quid or you've got 100,000, will be most welcome, and we'll make it as available as we can. And essentially we're looking at the possibilities of having 4 sorts of, we're calling them members because under the Financial Services Act, I think I'm right, John, I'm not allowed to say shareholders, so I haven't. No. Thank you, Philip. Because it's against the law. And we're, well, despite what people might think of us, so we have, we're looking at trading. The first category of things would be trading members. And they're essentially, that would be open to absolutely everybody. And whatever we're talking about the Phoenix now, it would be the same for any businesses that we own. So if you became a trading member, you'd be a trading member of the shop, the restaurant, the health club, whatever part of the Phoenix happens to grow into be. What we would need from you is some sort of commitment to spend a minimum amount every year. We are looking at around about £500 for individuals and around about £1,000 for families or groups. As far as I'm concerned, that's reasonable. It's 10 quid a week. Most people, even with blue money, are spending that. Yes. Essentially, you would just have a card, you would just have a membership number, we'd have a separate part of the till, we'd just swipe it through, it would accumulate to the end of the year. It's like the old co-op double divvy stamps things. And the end of the year would give you 5% on everything that you bought, or you ate, or you consumed in some way. This is the wonders of technology, that we can begin to do things like that. So essentially, we'll give you 5% at the end of the year. You would get that either in Phoenix vouchers, or you could put it towards shares. The shares would be in £100 units, so you could either top it up with cash if you weren't sort of all the way there, or you could just let it go and accumulate it through the years. So if you're looking at someone spending, for instance, £15 a week, they'd spend 780 a year, and we'd give them 40 quid. That's better than nothing. Well, it's nearly £1 a week. The next sort of type of way of participating would be shareholders, stakeholders. The only difference really between shareholders and stakeholders is if we started paying out dividends on our profits, then shareholders would keep the dividend and stakeholders would put it into some sort of community trust, tithing fund, or what have you. And that's up to them. Other than that, totally open to everybody. You get your same little card, you get a, sorry, that should say member certificate, yes. And it will be issued to named individuals or groups. Basically, we're looking for 500 quid, buys you 5 £100 shares. You can pay it in sterling, you can pay it in lets. Lets is a local economic currency, and there's lots of let schemes around the place. And if you want to know more, ask in the Phoenix and we'll put you in touch with the various schemes. There'll be no minimum spend on your shopping through the course of the year, and you can pay it in a lump sum or over 2 years, so you can pay 5 quid a week or whatever it is, or you can pay, obviously we prefer you to pay it in one go, but both ways are open. If you did that, we'd give you your 5%, would stay the same. You would get that back in vouchers. You could reinvest in shares. If you reinvested in shares, then we would look at doubling it. So you would get 10% worth of share options, or 5% if you do, because obviously part of, for us as a business, is we want to build the worth of the business and keep the money in. So the more you can help us do that, and the more we can raise money by shoppers rather than going to the bank, the more we can pass those benefits back to you. And, you know, essentially, if the thing is really going to work, then we don't want any bank borrowing, and just step out of that system totally. Now, it's probably a pipe dream, but we're certainly going to do everything we can to move towards that. After 3 years, you'll be eligible for dividends, and you'll get a share of the profit. So the first 3 years, you just get a discount on what you spend. You can reinvest it in shares. After 3 years, then you'll be eligible. If we pay a dividend, you'll get a part of it. And what we're looking at, as you'll see in the next slide, is essentially we're looking to allocate 25% of the after-tax profits to our shareholders, which hopefully will be our customers and suppliers. What also will apply to shareholders, stakeholders, is that you will get a vote and you'll get a participation in the business. So every couple of months there'll be meetings like this, and you can come and we'll go, who wants a sushi bar? Yes, no. And we'll, you know, you'll participate in how we create the business. We'll have consumer panels, so, you know, we've got a new range of pasta. You can come by my house one night and try it, or wine sampling evenings. But it's a way of, if people wish to become more involved in the business itself, how it's run, where it's going, then you'll be given ample opportunity for that. So for that, if a family was doing their main shopping in the Phoenix, and that's round about £2,500 a year, then they would earn a £500 share every 2 years. Can't say fairer than that, Gov. Yeah, that's better than you get in the bank. and you'd have more fun as well, I hope. Just a few other things on these. You just get one vote per person, so no one could have more than one vote. However many, you will go into other forms of shareholding, but however many shares people have got, it's one vote, one share. The shares are in £100 value, so again, same thing, you can put up the money or just hold it for another year. You can sell your shares. We would want first option on buying them back, but you know, if you live here for a couple of years, you build up a few shares, you're moving on, you can sell them. Whether anyone will buy them or not, it's another matter. So you know, we need to stress this is a small community business. You know, you're not going to get rich on this. Things could go horribly wrong and you'd lose everything, but it's essentially you as the owners of the business will create that future. So if you support the business, it will flourish, and if you don't, it won't. So secure your shares by shopping more. No. And of course you'll have to keep your, if you're going to pay over 2 years, you've got to keep it up to date, otherwise you get nothing. Banking members, we're exploring with some of the ethical banks a way of, you know, at the moment, some people, not me unfortunately, have money in the bank. What is possible to do is we can create a saver account at a participating bank. You move your money to them, and again, you know, if you're looking at banks like Triodos, you get a check, you know, you get a checkbook and everything else, normal banking things. But you're guaranteed to leave that money in that account, in that saver account for certain periods of time, and the bank then lets us have access to that money, and we can borrow a certain percentage of that at a preferential rate. So we'd be looking, instead of paying you interest, we'd either pay you in lets or vouchers, and again, if you reinvest in the shares at the end of the year on the interest we give you, we'll double it back in again. So you'd earn around, you could earn up to £50, so you'd be getting a rate of 10% for those of you that are technically minded. But that's a very good way, you know, it gives you the security. The bank is looking, you know, in a sense it puts the bank between us and yourselves, but it also gives you the security of knowing the bank is keeping an eye on us, because they're not going to, they've their own credibility on the line as well. So we will need to satisfy them that we're behaving properly. The other way is just straight investment. That would need to start we're trying to make it that every investor would first be, you know, what we might call an ordinary shareholder, and then you can go on up from that, and we'll make some allowance if people are non-residents. Then they can either order stuff through the internet, and you know, a whole shop will be available on the web before too much longer, or we'll make an allowance, and we'll pay roughly between 5 and 7%. If you've got 50 grand going spare, see me afterwards. So, coming to the end, last one is, well, how realistic is all this? This is roughly what needs to happen. At the moment, we serve an average of 2,700 customers a week, and they're spending, we have about a couple of hundred people spend 20 quid or more, we have about 500 spend 10 quid, and we have a couple of thousand spend a quid. Now, of course, some of those spend 50 and some of them spend 20p. So all those kids from the community buying their little Milky Way stars that infuriate you in the lineup, they're still contributing. So we're up around 550,000 on food right now. This might look a big sum. It's not really. If we look within 20 minutes of the Phoenix, the annual spend on food within that radius is around somewhere between 35 and 40 million. At the moment, most of it goes to Tesco's and the Co-op. We don't think it's unreasonable to attract, you know, a relatively small amount of that. For myself, I've certainly been involved in shops that have done very much You know, the world is changing, and our own feeling is that if we can create the facilities in the shop that match the products, then there's no reason why you know, a small but significant amount of people won't move from just buying a few specialty things to doing their shopping. It may also, in terms of the discounts and shareholding, encourage, you know, people that live on the peninsula not to leave the peninsula to do their food shopping. Dig. What we're very much concerned with is trying to change these two numbers rather than this number, purely because in terms of transport, in terms of facilities, in terms of the intimacy of our relationship with our customers and so on, we don't want you know, Brody is a great example of what not to do. You know, if you look at the Brody Food Hall, essentially it went from a really nice, charming, you know, local food shop to this sort of, I don't know, no one from Brody here. But I think they made a big mistake, and we wouldn't want to go around the same way. We're looking for space to provide much better quality service, not to just abandon you in a big, you know, in a big room. That's part of it. If we're looking in terms of money, how are we doing here? It's difficult to sense how you're all doing. 9:30, thank you. That's where I stop. I got 2 minutes more. Thank you, Christopher. I take that as a good hint. We'll just look at, well, 20 quid a week. If you spend 20 quid a week on food in the Phoenix, Tesco's, Co-op, Brody and local spa shop, that's roughly, you know, we're about 8% more expensive than Tesco's. Of course, you know, we're not talking about stupid price on tomato. We're just saying a normal shopping basket, buying roughly the same quality, one against the other. They're much more stingy with their discounts, but that's life. You're not looking at a big difference. And when you look at the cost, now the people that live in forests ignore this, all right? You have to absolutely ignore this bottom line. Don't think about how much it's going to cost you to drive here. But for the people from the people of Finton, you know, what are we talking about? You know, and if you, it's just a ridiculous, you know, that impression around food and money, and because you see a pile of bananas at 20p, you think you're going to get a deal on the rest of the shopping, is, as survey after survey has shown, it just doesn't work like that. Areas of concern, just to show that, you know, we're thinking about these things, and we'll be publishing sort of almost like responses, and no doubt if we have questions and answers afterwards, some of them will come up. And areas of benefit. Oops. We think these are the primary ones. You know, as I move the concern off rather quickly, but I'll put it back again, just to show we're not, in fact we could leave it there for the things. So, we could probably talk for a few more hours, but I won't. Essentially we'll open the floor, I think is the technical term. And if any of you have questions... Oh no, what I have to do first is thanks. Please indulge me, and if I forget anyone, I'm sorry. Thank you to Philip for the music, Nicole for the slides, also from the slides were all sorts of people, and I forgot to put on the slide that thanked them. But you know, it was people like Conrads and Harvey Nichols and Arup Partnership and all sorts of big shot architects were very kind, just sent the slides along to us. Very appreciative. Most thank you to everyone that's helped for this evening. You know, the bakers spent extra hours baking, and you better not put in any overtime, right? Where are you? All of the Phoenix team have worked very hard on this evening. Simon, I don't know how many of you saw the sort of website in the upper foyer. Clearly we haven't really mentioned that, as it's not something so much for you guys here, but certainly that we see that as a significant area of expansion for us. And Mareka and Gnosis, thank you for the work and support. And that's about it. Thank you very much for your time and attention. The floor is now open for questions, comments, opinions.